your fate was changed. And not in some abstract, cosmic, everything happens for a reason kind of way. Not because the planets shifted or because you finally cracked some ancient code. I'm talking about a literal, documented, heaven-shaking recalibration that happened because of what you did this morning. And I don't think you even realize what you did. So let me just say that again. Heaven looked at its original plan for your life, the blueprint that was set before you even drew your first breath. And this morning, it hits pause. Not a temporary hold, not a slight adjustment to the margins, but a full stop cancellation of the draft that was running. Because of an act you probably wrote off as forgettable. Because of a moment you might not even remember if I didn't say something right now. And that's the part that gets me, really gets me. The enemy is working triple shifts today, not because of some grand spiritual warfare strategy he's been cooking up for months. He's been scrabbling because he saw what happens this morning, and he saw the frequency you sent upward. And he knows exactly what heaven just authorized on your behalf. Everything shifts in these next 24 hours. The stagnation, the silence, the feeling that you have been running on a treadmill going nowhere. It all just got interrupted. Because here's the crucial piece you need to understand before we go any further. This is not shifting because your season finally arrived. This is shifting because of what you did. And that difference is absolutely everything. You didn't find this video by accident. The algorithm didn't bring you here. I don't believe in coincidences, and I don't think you do either. You are here because everything in you has been waiting for this confirmation. And let me stop here. Let it land. Because something in you knew, before you even clicked play, that this morning was different. You woke up carrying something you couldn't name, a weight, a knowing, a strange sense that the atmosphere had shifted while you were sleeping. And you did something with that feeling. Something, I want to say small, something almost invisible. Maybe you chose patience when every cell in your body wanted to snap. Maybe you beat back a word that would have cut someone open, and instead you just breathed. Maybe you got out of bed when staying under the covers felt like the only sane option. Or maybe, and this is the one that really matters, maybe you looked at something you've been holding onto for years, something you have been nursing like a wound or clutching like a lifeline, and you loosened your grip just a little, just enough for heaven to see the cracks in the wall you have been building around yourself. You felt like none of it mattered. I know you did. You felt like you were going through motions, like your obedience was just noise in a universe that wasn't listening. You had no idea that what you did in that quiet moment this morning was being witnessed at a level far beyond anything you can see with your natural eyes. And this is where I need you to pay attention, pay really close attention. Because the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie into your thoughts all day. He's telling you that your act this morning was insignificant. He's replaying every delayed promise, every unanswered prayer, every moment this year where you did the right thing and nothing seemed to change. He is using your own faithfulness as evidence against you, saying your consistency hasn't registered, saying God didn't notice. But here's what I need you to hear. Heaven doesn't grade obedience by size. It doesn't work like a points system where the grand gesture gets the grand rewards. Heaven responds to the posture of the heart behind the act. And what you carried into that moment this morning wasn't small. It was the posture of someone who chose something other than themselves when it cost them something. And that kind of choice doesn't go unnoticed. It goes into the record. It becomes evidence. It becomes the legal ground upon which heaven moves. And the heaviness you are feeling right now, that's not the weight of being forgotten. That's the weight of transition. Is the pressure that builds in a room right before every wall shifts. You are not standing in delay. You are standing in the final seconds before a recalibration becomes visible. I want you to think about what it actually means for God to cancel His original plans for you. Most people hear that and they immediately picture God as this sort of cosmic micromanager, furiously scrabbling changes into a celestial whiteboard. But I think that's not how it works. It's not that God didn't know what He was doing before. It's that what you did this morning unlocked something that couldn't exist within the old framework. The old container had to break. The old blueprint had to be burned. And what you're about to step into is so much bigger than what He originally designed for you that the original architecture simply couldn't hold it. Think about a house you built when you were 25. The floor plan, the rooms, the little nooks where you thought you'd spend your quiet evenings. Now imagine you're 45 and you are become someone completely different. You have collected new people, new passions, new capacities. The old house isn't bad. It's just too small. It doesn't fit who you have become. So this morning you demonstrated who you have become. And heaven responded by saying, we are building something new. So here is where it gets really honest. Most people hear that and feel surge of hope. And they should. But if you allow yourself to stop at that feeling, you will miss the instruction. Because the thing God canceled this morning wasn't just an external plan, a career trajectory or a relationship or a timeline. In many cases, it was a version of yourself, a version that had grown too comfortable in the waiting room, mistaking preparation for a destination. A version that had started to confuse the antechamber of divine process with the grand ballroom of your ultimate purpose. You had begun to settle into the delay as though it were your permanent address. And God, in His relentless love, looked at you this morning and said, "Not yet. But more importantly, never here. You were never meant to reside permanently in the place of preparation. There is a pattern that shows up in the lives of people who have been dramatically redirected. And I want you to see it clearly because it's happening to you right now. Think about the ones who had to leave everything familiar without a clear destination. Think about the ones who walked away from certainty toward a harvest they couldn't yet see. Think about the ones who were stopped mid-stride on roads that made complete sense to them and had to be rendered blind before they could finally see. The undeniable pattern is this: God doesn't recalibrate the merely willing. He recalibrates the ready. And ready looks and feels vastly different from willing. Willing says, "I will go, but only I know the conditions are exactly here. If the path is clear and the outcome is guaranteed." Ready says, "I have already let go of the need for guaranteed conditions. I'm committed to the journey, whatever it may hold." And this morning, something within you let go. Maybe you didn't even feel it consciously. Maybe it happened unconsciously. Maybe it happened in that liminal space between sleep and waking, where your conscious defenses are lowered and something deep within you finally released its grip. And heaven noticed, the spiritual register lit up. The entire architecture of your next season shifted in response. But here is the part that no one wants to hear. The recalibration isn't solely about what God is adding to your life. It's equally and perhaps more profoundly about what He is removing. And some of what He is actively removing, you are still desperately trying to hold onto. Some of what He is canceling, you have been passionately praying to keep. There are relationships in your life that felt like destiny but were actually subtle detours designed to teach you lessons before you reached your true destination. There are opportunities that gleamed like open doors but were actually tests of your discernment. There are versions of success you have been chasing that if God had allowed you to reach them, would have ultimately taken you further from your actual calling. Really uncomfortable, yeah? And this is the inherent tension, the profound paradox of divine recalibration. It doesn't always feel like a blessing when it initially begins. It often feels like a devastating loss. Stay with me, because what is coming next is the path that holds the power to break the cycle of the past and set you free. I think about people who carried dreams that were genuinely placed inside them, and for years after receiving those dreams, everything that transpired seemed to be the polar opposite of those dreams coming true. People were stripped of symbols of identity and favor. They were thrown into pits, places of abandonment and despair. Their character was maligned. Their potential was confined. And yet, at every single point of apparent consolation, of utter devastation, a greater hand was not absent, it was actively constructing. The pit was never the punishment. It was the preparation for something you couldn't see from the darkness. But stuck in the suffocating dark, you cannot see the grand design. You have to keep trusting without tangible evidence. You have to preserve the integrity of your spirit without the comfort of a timeline. You have to allow recalibration without letting it curdle into bitterness. I need to speak directly to someone right now. You have been in a pit. You have been. Perhaps not a literal pit, but spiritually. A place where your gifts were visible but tragically unused. Where your purpose was deeply felt but remained frustratingly unexpressed. Where the dream was vibrantly alive but buried beneath layers upon layers of disappointment and hope, deferred hope. And in your anguish, you have been crying out, asking, why hasn't the breakthrough come? But the true question heaven has been waiting for you to ask is not why hasn't it come? The real question is, am I truly ready to receive it in the exact form it's been prepared, rather than the real idealized that I've stubbornly imagined? The breakthrough you have been asking for and the breakthrough that has been prepared for you are often not the same thing in terms of shape, size, or timing. And the gap between your expectations and the actual preparation is the exact space where people surrender. You have been waiting for a grand door when God has already opened a discreet window. You've been praying for the restoration of what was, when He has been patiently building something entirely new, something you have never seen before. Once that understanding clicks into place, everything begins to shift. The perspective changes. The struggle softens. But right underneath that liberating realization is a root that runs even deeper into your soil of your being. And if you don't see it, it will continue to operate subtly beneath the surface of every new season, sabotaging your progress. It's It's the insidious root of self-protection, masquerading as spiritual discernment. It's the habit of calling your fear wisdom. It's the practice of labeling your avoidance of risk as patience. It's the tendency to mistake your withdrawal from meaningful engagement for peace. Many people who are genuinely cold have inadvertently built entire frameworks around their own hesitation. They have transformed their delay into a doctrine. They have preached surrender while silently controlling every variable they can possibly reach. God has been waiting, not because He's slow to act, but because He will never force you into a freedom you haven't genuinely chosen. This morning, something within you stopped controlling, even for a single moment. And that moment was enough, really enough. Now, here comes the part that actually holds the power to shatter patterns and liberate you into your true inheritance. The greatest barrier standing between you and everything that has been recalibrating in your favor is not external opposition. Opposition is real, but it's not your greatest obstacle. Your greatest obstacle is the part of you that still, at its core, doesn't believe you are truly allowed to have it, to receive it, to possess it. To possess it. It's the part of you that has been wounded so many times that you have inadvertently built a hidden wall around your heart, not to keep the divine out. That's not possible, but to protect yourself from the devastating pain of hoping again at full strength. You have been believing cautiously. Someone tiptoeing through a minefield, trusting partially like a sailor with the one hand on the rudder and the other surrendering by always keeping one hand firmly on the outside just in case. And here is the invitation that is being extended to you right now, to take that hand back, not to grab the outcome for yourself, but to leave it, trembling perhaps, in complete surrender. Because here is the utterly unexpected truth. The divine didn't recalibrate because of how perfectly you performed or how flawlessly you behave. Heaven shifted because of how profoundly honest you became. It was not your flawless performance this morning. It was not your unwavering discipline, your consistent routines, or your perceived maturity. It was the moment of raw, unguarded honesty. The moment you stopped pretending to be okay when you were not. The moment you allowed the actual unvarnished condition of your heart to be seen. That was the signal. That was the signal that was responded to. Not the polished prayer delivered with perfect articulation. Not the memorized declaration with practice. It was the truth underneath all of it. The authentic cry of your soul. The place within you that finally whispered, I don't have this figured out. I need you to help me. I need you to carry what I simply cannot. That raw vulnerability, that sacred nakedness before the gaze of the Almighty was the actual catalyst that activated everything. Heaven doesn't primarily move toward your perceived strength. It moves with unparalleled power toward your surrender. And that changes absolutely everything because, oh my God, because it means you don't have to arrive at your destination fully healed before you can begin to live in it. You don't have to have it all figured out. The foundation is being built within you right now. Foundation through this very moment of recognition and honesty. A foundation strong enough to hold the weight of everything that's about to be released into your life. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to sit with what you did this morning. Not analyze it, not criticize it, just sit with it. Let yourself feel the shift that's already happened. Because your fate was changed, not in some future moment that you are still waiting for. It already happened. The moment you acted, the moment you chose, the moment you let go, that was the moment everything altered course. The plan that was running before this morning was good. Yeah, it was good. It was appropriate. It was designed for a version of you that no longer exists. And the new plan, the one that was drafted in response to your act, is so much bigger, so much more aligned with who you actually are. So much more capable of holding everything you're about to become. I want you to feel the weight of that. Something happened this morning that you didn't recognize, something that felt like nothing, something that probably seemed insignificant. But heaven caught it. The spiritual registers lit up. The original itinerary has cancelled. A new blueprint was unrolled. And now everything, absolutely everything, is different. And you need to know what you are walking into. This isn't just about feeling better or getting your breakthrough. This is about stepping into a version of your life that the old you couldn't have handled. This is about becoming who you were always meant to be. Not through struggle and surviving, but through a single moment of honesty that shifted the entire trajectory. What you did this morning was the pivot point. You shook heaven. You recalibrated destiny. And it all started with something you almost didn't do. Maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe there is a moment from this morning that's already surfacing in your mind, a decision, a word, a choice that you made before you had time to think about it, to overthink it. Or maybe it's still hidden from you, buried in the quiet of early dawn. But your spirit knows. Something in you knows that this morning was different. That's not accidental. That's the evidence. That's the confirmation that what I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you right now, is real. And the enemy knows it too. That's why you have felt so strange today, caught between the life you have been living and the life that's now opening up in front of you. That's why the air feels different, changed, with possibility that you cannot quite name yet. Because you are standing on the edge of something massive, and your feet are already moving forward. You just haven't looked down to see the ground moving beneath you. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Instead of brushing this off as another piece of inspiration that fades by dinner, I want you to take this seriously. I want you to acknowledge what you did this morning and own the shift that's happening because of it. Your fate was changed, not spiritually, not eventually, actually, tangibly. Heaven recalibrating changed. And the only question that remains is whether you will walk forward into it or whether you will let the old version of yourself convince you that nothing really happened. The choice is yours always. But the change has already made. You shook heaven this morning. You shook. Now let heaven shake you.